Welcome to Introspectively Speaking, the podcast where I invite you into my stream of consciousness. You'll get to listen in on real conversations as they unfold between me and my friends, and sometimes the conversations I have with myself. We'll explore universal topics, life lessons learned, and reflect on the truths we often keep to ourselves. There's a little something for everyone to relate to in this podcast. With the right balance of levity and depth, I can promise you one thing. You will always leave with at least one thing to think about. With that, I'm your host, Amber Lynette, and now it's time to go on some trails. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready, baby.
Okay.
Let's fucking do it.
Welcome, everyone, back to Introspectively Speaking. This is Amber Lynette. So I am sitting here with Elayna.
Hey.
I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited to be. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yes.
What a deep honor for me to be on your podcast.
Yeah, so you've been following the podcast now for some time.
I'm a big fan of the podcast.
And finally, I've decided to bring people onto the podcast. I've had my best friend, her husband, my other friend that I haven't even started to edit that one yet, and then now I'm having you.
Yay.
So you're the third person that I've asked to speak with, but somebody that I've been wanting to speak to for some time,
Absolutely.
just simply because our conversations are really good whenever we have them, and I think that a lot of what we talk about would benefit others to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
So can you share the story from what you remember of how you and I met?
Yeah.
What is the connection?
Oh my gosh. I think, it's so funny. So me and you went to college together, and I was just telling you, but now that we're recording, I can repeat that I don't remember exactly when we first met, but I do remember that we had a couple classes together because we had the same major, I think, comm studies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always remember you sitting in the front of the class, and I was always in the back somewhere. And I just remembered that anytime the professor would ask a question you would be so engaged. And my thoughts as I looked at you from behind, I thought, she's so smart. I was like, this is one of the smartest people I've ever, because it was just like so impressive the way that you were just so dialed in and tuned in. And so from that moment, I knew like, oh, we have to be friends. We have to be friends because she's just so smart, and I love that. And I fast forward, I don't remember exactly when we had that conversation in the hallway, which I love so much. This is like, to this day, one of my favorite stories that I've ever been told. And I think that most of it, most of the story was really just in the delivery of it. Like, I think that you could be like, if nothing else works out, I'll tell you, I think you can be a comedian.
Oh my God, thank you.
Because of your delivery. It's so funny. So I don't know all the details of the story, but I know the long and short of it is that you were on some kind of a road trip with your friends, and you guys were making funny, cutesy noises. Uh-huh. And I guess you were pretending to pass gas. Because when you're young and on a road trip, that's really funny. And then the climax of the story goes, you went out to let out a pretend fart and you actually shit yourself.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It was the story of the time that I sharted myself. Yes. I think that story came, it was, I remember like we were in the hallway, yes. And it was, you were like going to another class.
Yes.
It was we had like a quick exchange, but somehow, I don't know, I told you that story.
Yeah, I don't even know what the context was either.
You were just cracking.
I was to this day, that was years ago, and I promise you, anytime I need a good laugh, like if my day is down, I think of how funny that story was.
The time that I shit myself.
Yes, because it was just such a wow, this is very random, but thank you so much for sharing. You have made my day.
Yeah, that was like a new level of friendship unlocked. Like hearing the story of when you shit yourself, but going back to when we first met, so I like to ask everybody, right, that I have on their perspective of like what they remember when we met, and because sometimes mine will align or I'll have like additional information. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, I don't remember.
I remember the time.
we were in, is it Steinberg?
Steinberg.
Dave Steinberg's class.
Yes.
And I think it was like an intro to communication. It had to have been like one of the like base level courses. Yes. This was at UM, the School of Communication there. And you're right. I always sit in the front.
Always.
I don't know. I think it becomes from the fact that I was older than pretty much everybody in our cohort, because most people followed the huge trajectory, and I didn't. I had taken like a million years to finish my associate's degree. By the time I actually got to UM, it was like a big thing for me. I was on like some scholarship, not all scholarship, and I just at that point in time knew that I was going to put my all into, not that everybody else didn't feel that way. I just think that I had that extra like layer of insecurity perhaps going into a classroom. So I was there and would get involved in conversation. And I feel like you sat next to me or you were behind me, or I don't know. Yeah. Like
we were pretty close because I saw the back of your head and your hand go up every single time.
Oh my God,
you're a genius.
Oh, good.
And then we did a couple. I still have.
We had other classes.
Yeah, we had other classes together because we had the same major. The reason why I found out about your podcast is because like in the first or second episode, you told the story of how when we were giving a presentation,
capstone.
Yeah, in our capstone course, and I still have on my Google Drive our entire project.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It's still there. Yeah, I remember you telling the story of you kind of. In your part of the presentation, you were explaining things and you kind of just got like
blank.
You drew a blank and you're like, and Elayna.
Now Elayna's gonna finish everything that I hope she knows what I was going to say. And you took it away like a fucking champ. So that was our capstone project. That was like at the end, right, of at least my UM journey, because I know you still have a journey with UM, and you can kind of touch upon your like amazing professional fucking mindset, entrepreneurship accolades, and all that stuff.
Jeez.
Because she's fucking fantastic, people.
Thanks.
But then we also like. You did was it The Wire?
Off the Wire,
The Wire, which was really cool.
Show.
You were in
My
debate.
Goodness.
I think I had gone with you like a couple times to like get a feel for what that was like. Always really interested in that stuff, but never pursued it. So yeah, we had like a couple classes together.
Yeah, a couple classes, couple things.
Yeah,
and then into our and I also remember you used to give me rides because I didn't want to walk. You used to give me rides back to the dorm from the comm school after class. That was fun. And your Mini Cooper.
And my Mini Coupe. Oh my God, that Mini Cooper.
And then we kind of lost touch for a while after we graduated.
Yeah.
And then it's only recently after I listened to your pod, I reached out and I was like, "Hey, girl, what's going on?" Where you been at? Because I also moved away to Toronto. Yeah. So, but here we are now.
I know.
Oh, what a time.
So cool. You and I always got along.
That's what I'm saying.
Like really, really well. Like laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, spaceship computer.
Computer. I don't even know where that came from either. I think it was. We
were working on NVivo.
Yeah.
We were working on NVivo.
Man.
And I don't know what the fuck. It was like some, I think it was, oh my God, Soo-yoon Kim.
Soo-yoon Kim, shout out.
Yeah.
I think she's still there.
Is she still there?
I'm pretty sure.
I think about her all the time because she was like the first, not the first professor, but like, yeah, maybe one of the first that like gave me some real feedback where it wasn't like, you're the shit. It was like.
She was critical?
She was critical in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, she was a sweet lady.
She was super sweet.
She had a great fashion sense. I remember that.
Oh yeah,
I remember her looks.
I loved her look and her personality. But it was like the first quant academic type paper that, or at least that I had to write.
Yes.
And before that time, I was so used to writing in a different style, more like persuasive, like that kind of stuff. And so I put my heart and soul into this paper, and she, I think asks to see me in her office.
Oh my goodness.
It was a nice moment though, because she was like, I wanted to talk to you and give you feedback. She's like, because like I've been in your shoes, of like, but this is not how you write an academic whatever paper. And so she's like giving me very clear examples of what it actually sounds like. And it's like, all based off of data and not like opinion and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, took it and ran with it. But it was some project that we had to do for her. We were using NVivo. And I don't know why we said spaceship computer.
Spaceship computer. You are still my spaceship computer to this day.
We would like message each other every once in a while, like, hey, spaceship computer.
Yeah, spaceship computer. Yeah, going back to your point, I do think that we were just destined to be friends. I think that our personality types just get along. You tend to meet people in life where you're just like, yeah, we click.
Yeah.
Naturally, normally. And we have such great rapport with each other. Now that we've spent a lot of time together now in our adulthood, I kind of see that even more so that we're similar. And I was telling my friend the other day, I said, I don't need a therapist actually, because I'm always the friend that plays the role of the therapist. Yeah. And now you have become that one-up person. So I'm like, I have my own therapist. Which is so great. And I think, and not in like a way where you're psychoanalyzing me or anything like that. It's just such great feedback that you give me when I can say how I feel. And then you can be like, oh, and kind of do exactly what I do for others. This is the first time in my life. You
have somebody that does it for you.
Yes. And it feels so nice. And it's just so incredible that I could have a friendship like that. So I'm really happy.
Oh, thank you. Just I'm not qualified to do it.
No.
At all. I'm not one. But no, I get what you're saying. I think it's like, to have that friend in your life that's like pretty, I don't know, neutral.
Yes.
I kind of feel like I'm Sweden, all the time. And sometimes I've been told like too much, right? We're too neutral, not taking sides enough. But that's just not who I am. I'm not really like a side taker type of person. Even in my own personal life, I'm always like challenging myself to see all sides of a story, even when, like it's not looking good for me. I still try to do that. So thank you so much for saying that. And you also offer some pretty freaking cool perspectives that we can just like go down the rabbit hole and talk about, which I love. Like that's always like really rare, I think, to find in you don't get that with everybody.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I know we talked about, and we want to talk a little bit more about the different kinds of friends that we have in just looking at friendship and what that looks like for different people. And for me, I really appreciate the fact that there are different people in my life that play different roles, right? And bring different things to my friendships. So I don't think I have any two friendships that look the same, which I really love, because it invites such an like different perspective and enrichment in my life that I think is really, really important for one to have. And I acknowledge that I'm really lucky to have this, because I know that it's not the common or, the norm to have such dynamic friends, that offer different things. So I'm really, really excited to explore, like as I get older and as my friendships grow more mature, what that looks like even further.
What would you say are like if you had to compare the two extremes of the kind of friendships that you have in your life right now, like what would they be?
Yeah, so one of my friends is in a very similar position in their life. So I am a single person. I live solo dolo with me and my dog Susie Bear. And I don't have any children or anything like that. So I have a friend that mirrors that, even personality-wise. We're very, very similar. Even in our upbringing, there are a lot of commonalities and similarities that I see between us in our friendship. And then I think the other extreme end of that would be someone who does have children, that might be in is in a committed relationship. And the differences there are really in our lifestyle, what our day-to-day looks like. Yeah. And sometimes, depending on what my needs are as a person, the ask from this person or this person might look different. Yeah. What I offer them might look different depending on what they're going through. So so on one end, you have someone who is exactly like me. On another end, you have someone who isn't, even in our habits and our lifestyle, I travel a lot. I go different places. I like to see the world, That my lifestyle or the way that I've shaped my life allows me to be more flexible in that. And then you have, you know, friends that aren't as flexible, that don't have that ability to just get up and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are two really great examples of like the differences in friendships. What about you?
I think, yeah, like similar, right? I think in all of my, I think I find now, I'm kind of like thinking about the friend groups and people that I'm friends with. I think the biggest difference is maybe like the kind of conversations we have. Like, because but I think to your point, it's like based off of like all like lifestyle things, like what's happening. And most of my friends have kids.
Yeah.
Like pretty much like, and let me think about this. Literally, all of my childhood best friends, for example, they all have kids. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm decidedly childless. Yes. You know, like you are ish.
Yeah, I'm gonna adopt some
I know you're gonna
later.
Right. That's like your future goal is to have a child, but through the adoption process. Yeah. But no, I don't see that for myself. So I think the difference comes in like just our conversations. And I have certain friends that I'll call upon and hang out with. And I know when we hang out, it's going to be more like, and this is not a bad thing. So people are going to be like, who the fuck is she talking about? Maybe a little more surface level. Oh. And that's not a bad thing. I think that's necessary.
Absolutely.
In like the friendship groups, I feel like we need to have the friends that we can like go down the rabbit hole deep. Like your conversation and my conversations like would probably confuse
a lot of people. We got to put on our tin hats.
Yeah. Like it might confuse people, or they
just don't get it.
Or it just like would be disengaging for some.
Yes.
But not for others. I think others would be like, wow, this is like intellectually stimulating.
I love that too. Yeah.
But then I have my other friends where I'm just gonna go like grab a beer and like
that's good. I don't
know, just like catch up and not go down those
need
rabbit
to
holes.
Yeah, that's the important thing of having friendships that look different across. And that's if I had personally all my friends are like deep intellectuals that like to have really brainy conversations, that could make me quite tired, myself.
That's fucking exhausting.
Exactly
Actually,
what I'm saying. So it's good to have the beer friends. It's good to have the people that you just like. Sometimes sitting in silence and doing absolutely nothing is a good thing too. And you have a friend that can do that. That all of them put together creates this like really delicious pizza pie of a holistic friendship experience. You just create like a transformer of all of these people.
In my mind, I like see pizza pie, transformers, pepperoni, peppers, like supreme. You're saying that we are supreme pizzas.
Yeah, we are.
Friendships are supreme pizzas.
Supreme pizzas that they eat in their spaceships with their computers.
Their spaceship computers.
Their spaceship computers.
Exactly. Well, I think on that note, right? We've talked about like the roles that different people play in our lives and in relationship, right? Not necessarily relying on that one relationship or person to fill all of those roles that we feel like we need. And many times you and I have spoken about the concept of like how your relationships with people, that's like a mirror for you. Right, you've told me before. You hang out with people who helped you to see different sides of yourself.
Absolutely,
did I get that right?
100%. And the really the philosophy behind it is I don't really believe, and this isn't even my original thought. Like this has been researched and people talk about this. I don't believe that we are any different from each other. And I think that in relationships, in platonic relationships, in romantic relationships, what happens is that the things that we need to work on or the things that we most admire about ourselves, so you can see both ends of it, are reflected back to us. So somebody, and we can only give what we have too, that's another really important thing. So someone who is very confident and has that confidence when they walk into a room if that is something that you admire in them, it's because you also admire that trait in yourself. If someone is very vulnerable and outspoken and you don't really like that about them, it's because you're uncomfortable with that in yourself. So we're granted with these opportunities to kind of reflect back to ourselves the things that we like, the things that we don't like. And in our relationship dynamics, in our friendships, in our romantic partners, relationships, we have the opportunity to test ourselves and to grow, right? That's the idea of growth and self-improvement through these relationships that we have with people. And it allows us to do that. So, and sometimes like maybe it's not the right time for that. If you are with someone and they're not comfortable with the way that you communicate or the openness that you are and that you have with them, it's because that's just not where they're at on their journey.
Yeah.
And because they're not there and they're not matching you there and they're not mirroring that, it can be intimidating. It can be scary. It can evoke a lot of things that they're like, oof, this isn't something that I'm ready to deal with within myself.
Yeah.
And you're presenting it to me, you're showing it to me as a mirror would.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I like that right now. So they might cower away, they might retreat, they might go.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
I've had bad experiences with that.
yeah. So, but that's what happens. So I think that when we have these friendships, relationships, they allow us to see inside of ourselves a lot in a really beautiful way, which is also why I love the opportunity to meet different people. And I always it's a tool that I use to like deepen the connection that I have with them as well. Cause I really like deep relationships, deep connections with people. I think that that's like one of the most fundamental things that we can be is connected with one another. I always find commonalities, similarities, mirrored traits with me and another person to find relatedness, to help deepen connection with them. So it's a tool that I use to learn, a tool that I use to grow, a tool that I use to reflect.
What is one, is there like a trait that you've seen in someone that you're like, I don't, like not my like that's not my person, that's not my style, that's like not my, have you experienced that?
Yeah, and it depends on where I am in my life. Like, so, you know, as we grow and as we have these opportunities to grow through the experiences that we have with others, what confidence previously that I would see in someone would trigger me in a very negative way because I wasn't a very confident person. And now having the opportunity to realize, wow, they're very confident and sure of themselves, and having the ability to like adapt, right? Or just kind of reflect, right? Because that's
having done your own work on it, probably too, right?
Doing my own work, reflecting on it, you know, because a mirror is also very reflective, and it also has that power. So like the way that we're able to go is through the reflectivity of the mirror that we experience through the people that we have around us. So yes, confidence is something that I was just like, I don't like them. They're too boasty. They're too arrogant. They're too da-da-da-da-da. Like associating very negative traits with confidence because that's how I felt about myself. And then now doing the work, you know, and going through that process and embodying some of those traits of confidence through the mirror that I saw reflected back to me in the person that I had or the people that I had around me that were confident has helped me to be more confident.
I love that. I mean, I think that not, you know, I don't know specifically how you got to the point of like being able to realize this within yourself. I think it's probably because you're interested in self-improvement. But to your point, like, you know, I've been in conversations I've kind of had to figure out with the whole mirror concept, like I've kind of had to figure out and learn that what I'm into or what I like to talk about or like where I like to go in conversations is not where everybody is at, like at all. I've definitely been in situations where I've asked like one question too far, one question too deep, one question too triggering, one question too like going there, and the person has retreated. And so I've had to learn also that, you know, to scale back and read the room. And so that not everybody is going to want to go where I want to go all the time.
Absolutely.
And I would hope that eventually maybe one day those people would, but I think it takes that, like what whatever it is that you've found within yourself to identify that, like, okay, that is something, like confidence, right? That is something where I was sort of like, that bothers me.
Yes.
And then you've been able to take it and do your work to...
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And it's very important that, so in none of these examples that I've experienced, I've grown through a mirror, a friend, a relationship. I don't know if they were actually aware of their impact on me by just being themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a feedback loop situation where they're presenting you with information and you're telling them. Like in some situations, obviously, if someone was confident and I was unsure about my own confidence, me telling them, my display of my discomfort with their confidence might manifest in me telling them things to make them unconfident, like putting them down.
Ooh.
Right?
Okay.
So that's the way that we actually take what they're giving us and like tell them that what they're doing is not okay because it's not okay within ourselves.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. Like just trying to put them down because I don't like your confidence and who are you? Who do you think you are? I think you're very arrogant. You know, I think you're very rude. I don't like how you're showing up. Like it's making me uncomfortable. You know, what's that? So that's how we kind of give them back something that makes us uncomfortable.
So I guess it's a good time for anybody who's listening to kind of reflect then, right? On
Sure,
their
absolutely.
own insecurity. Because what it is, it's an insecurity.
Right. And why is it an insecurity?
Right? And like why? I mean, we all fucking have them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like not like a general, like, you know, using confidence still as the example. Maybe it's not just like confidence, but it could just be with certain people, right? Yeah, I think it's a good time for people to think about those kinds of people that they're like, fucking...
I don't like that.
Don't like that.
I don't like... And it's like, otherwise a pretty good quality to have, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're very communicative. You're very curious. You ask a lot of great questions. You're very confident. Like, I don't like her. I don't like that she asks so many questions. Why does that bother you? Right? What is it about the questions that, you know?
You know what this reminds me of? When we went out with Megan. And that dude on the street.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Can we give a moment to talk about that? That was so incredible.
Okay, so I did a friend mishmash, right?
Yes, that was
with you and Megan.
Yes, and Megan is your childhood friend.
And Megan is my childhood friend, one of my childhood friends who was present the day that I shat myself in her mother's car. So just kind of to close this to the loop on that before we move into the story, what happened was, like you were saying, just a bunch of little girls in a car,
right,
at Disney, leaving one of the all-star resorts to start our day in one of the theme parks. Probably, I don't know, like Magic Kingdom, probably. And we were just giggling and laughing, and fart humor is. I still think that fart humor is funny. I don't know. I just think it is. So yeah, I like lean over to be like, "Hey guys, listen to this," and I went to fart. And I thought it was just going to be that, and it ended up being a shart. And everybody was like, "Oh, ew, like what is that?" I just could not stop laughing. I could not stop laughing because I was like, "Holy shit."
Wow.
I just shit myself.
Yeah.
I'm in the third row of
Bizarre.
a GNC. No doors out. I have to climb over seats with shit in my pants and then waddle all the way back to the resort room where Megan's mom had to, like put my shorts in the tub because I shot in them. So yeah.
What a time.
That Megan.
Yeah.
That Megan.
For context.
And we went out. It was for my my
Your birthday. We celebrated you.
Yeah,
you can say it.
Yeah, my birthday.
Probably.
My birthday.
Yeah, girl.
Which passed already. So obviously, because we're talking about this after the fact. But and we went to Margot, and then we went to, I think she took us to Lost Boys, right?
Well, I think we went to one before Lost Boy. We went to a total of 4.
Mama Tried.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Mama Tried and Lost Boys. And I had already had a few beverages in me.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know, there was just this dude standing outside.
Yeah.
And I think I bummed a cigarette off
both
of him.
Of you did.
But yeah, both Megan and I bummed a cigarette.
Which then turned into a series of you guys chain smoking the guy's entire pack.
This sounds about right. It happens from time to time. Not a smoker, but
hilarious.
Sometimes
Hilarious.
I am. So, I don't know. This guy, I feel like if I describe him too much, he was such a I don't want to say unique, but unique in the way that like he may be easily identifiable. You don't think so?
100%. He was a Peruvian, I think,
Yeah.
with an Australian accent.
Yes.
I mean, what?
Yeah, like who the fuck? Like, I don't know who the fuck listens to this exactly, but like, what are the chances that you know a Peruvian guy with an Australian accent?
It was so cool.
It was cool. He was like a cool dude.
Yeah.
And I pulled a Call Her Daddy because, I mean, if anybody listens to Call Her Daddy, then...
Good podcast.
Yeah, great. I love it. I didn't like it at first, but...
It warms up.
I warmed up to her and her style. And she's pretty entertaining. And she does the same shit where she usually talks to people and she's like asking them about like, their childhood traumas and stuff. And that's what I did. I was like, I literally looked at you and Megan.
You have to tell us. You have to tell them that you actually said, hey, girls, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. But first, buddy, can I have a cigarette? So you take the guy's cigarette. He's so nice to offer you guys a cigarette. Take the guy's cigarette. He lights it. You smoke it. You take a puff. You blow it out. You look at him. Tell me about your childhood trauma. And we look at each other. Me and Megan are like, what?
Oh, my God. Oh, that's like Amber with a few drinks in her. Obnoxious, but so fun.
It was so much fun. And he opened up, didn't he?
Oh my God, yeah. It was great. But I mean, you know what I mean? When I like said earlier that I've asked one question too deep, one question too,
well, that was the only question you asked.
That was the only question I asked. But like, that's like an example of what I like to, where I've been before, whatever I like to ask. But whatever, I asked this guy and he like was game.
Yeah, he was game. And then there was a turning point.
There was a fucking turning point
where
in the conversation.
He was just like, all right, well, gotta go. And I never saw him again. I don't even know if he was real.
I don't even think, so, okay, what did he explain? He had some, like, infidelity in his past.
His marriage. I mean, there was a lot.
There was a lot there. And I mean, at a certain point, I didn't really, like, continue to probe. It was
now
he's just sharing.
Right. He's on the couch. His legs are kicked up.
Oh, yeah.
His arms are crossed, and he's just telling himself.
Yeah, and I'm just puffing off of, like, maybe the third cigarette, listening. And like, eyebrow raise. That's interesting. Okay. And, like, that's all I had to do was I asked that one question, and he was just... But then there came a point in the conversation where I think maybe he was like, fuck, I've overshared.
Yeah.
And he just you just saw him like shrink a little. And then he went inside to go meet with his friends. But then later when we went inside, he was with no one. He was just at the bar. And I was like,
he was just by his lonesome, wasn't he?
I was like, damn, we maybe sent this guy on a fucking rabbit hole for the rest of the night. But yeah.
Hope he's well.
I hope he's well too.
Hope he's well. That was
Peruvian guy with an Australian accent. You were very nice.
Yeah.
And like so kind to entertain the question. After I looked at you guys and was like, watch this, girls.
Man, that was a time. I will never forget that. I think we have like really great like moments where it's like, wow, this is probably something I'll never forget. And that moment with Megan, that night with Megan, it was like a fever dream. That was really funny.
So fun.
Yeah.
So such a fun night.
Yeah.
Really good time.
Yeah. And I love that we did like the friendship mashup, because that's another thing about friendships. And when you have so many different kind of friends in friendship, there's like a I don't know if everybody will get along if I introduced everybody to each other kind of vibe, because everybody kind of is like different. And so I like that we're exploring what it means to like, hey, let me take this friend and bring them here, and take this friend and bring them here. At weddings, people do that all the time, where they kind of just have like everybody together, which is fun. But just like normally, right? It's like you kind of operate in silos with your different friend groups. Yeah. And then bringing them together. It could be weird, and personalities could be weird, or it could be great.
Or it could be great. Yeah, I think we had like a little trial. It went really, really well.
It went really well. We will expand now.
We will expand and see how that goes. Yeah, I think it's cool. And for me, that's one of the things that this last year has been like one of the things that I've wanted to work on. Yeah. And that's like rebuilding my friendship group. Excuse me, because like not that I lost it, but that this has been one of my goals for the last year, is to rebuild my friend group, because like my core friends, right? They don't live here. And I mentioned that like a couple times
Yes.
on my podcast, that like my best friends don't live here. And I've lost touch with, I mean, lots of people. I just, sometimes I can't fathom the fact that like when I was in my 20s, and I think this is an experience that a lot of us experience as we get older, but in my 20s I had such a robust friend group.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily like every single person in that group was like a super close friend. It just, there was always something to do, like
Mm-hmm.
social, and like I just had like I had like the multiple friend groups, neighborhoods, friendship
Yes.
groups, or like neighborhoods.
Yes.
So I had, one neighborhood and like other neighborhoods. And then with time, you drift apart,
Yeah.
things happen. And I know that's normal, but I started to realize in this last year that I got to a point where I just like didn't have many neighborhoods.
Where are my hoods?
Where are my hoods? Like I don't know where the fuck they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and also something like I think I've had to learn with, even with like my like Dawn, Mia, Carla, like those are like my best, like known them forever, like best friends. I've even had to like realize for myself that I wasn't putting in, I don't think, the effort that I could be putting in. So anyways, I guess I'm just going through this whole thing of like where effort needs to go in all kinds of relationships.
Yes.
And it just doesn't, you can't take them for granted.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's really important, to your point, that you do continue to pour into relationships or friendships that matter a lot to you, And yeah, we do get complacent in our friendships, especially with the ones that we've had for long times, where it's like, they'll be around. But you always need to water your friend groups and your friendships like you water plants.
Yeah.
And continue to nurture them. And if you do that, you'll get really great lifelong friendships too. Like, I really like that idea. My grandmother is really good at maintaining a friendship. I mean, even if that's just like a phone call to check in every here and there, doesn't even have to be, depending on the person's needs, doesn't even have to be that deep. But if we continue to nurture these friendships and really care about them, then what you'll have is not only just a friend, but like a lifelong person. It'll be there forever, outside of even your relationship. They'll be there forever. And that's really great. I was thinking about, how grateful I am to have girls that I travel the world with that are like just down for whatever. Grateful to have friends that just support me unapologetically in every single thing. They're so supportive and they're rooting for me. That's really a blessing to have, a strong support system of people that want to see you do good. They love you.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to just give back to them and just like love them. And, I will also go into this idea of pouring into and, sort of the reciprocity aspect of friendship that is really important too.
That is important, yeah.
I, in my, younger years of friendship, really didn't understand what a healthy relationship looked like, never mind a friendship.
Yeah.
And for me, and I think we've talked about this a lot, that I had this disease to please. I was a people pleaser. And a lot of the friendships that I had growing up were built on a foundation of people pleasing, like this idea of, because I lacked self-confidence, I didn't feel like I had a right to being loved just because of who I am. I always had to earn love, blah, 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 all these things. And, being a people pleaser really created an imbalance in the relationships that I had, the friendships that I had, and learning through healing and relearning what a healthy dynamic in friendship looked like meant that reciprocity is a really good thing to have in your friendship. Not to say that reciprocity is something that you kind of put on this like sort of pedestal, but it is something that is really important. And I saw something recently that said, how do you know the difference between people pleasing and actually doing something for someone based on, coming from a compassionate place? And the answer was resentment in the long term.
Okay.
So if you do something for someone and from a space of just like, yeah, I'm just doing it because I love them, then resentment won't come up. But if you are doing something from a place of like people pleasing, or there's a wound or something attached to it, the feeling of resentment later on, you'll look back and say, yeah, I feel X because of this, and I feel like this and this. So resentment is something that's a really interesting tell to know whether or not you did something out of the kindness of your heart for someone in your friendship or in any dynamic, or if it was to attach to this idea of like a people pleasing.
The fuck?
I know.
I get it though. Like I'm like nee. What the fuck did you just say? Let me think about that.
New information
coming in. Spaceship computer.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And I don't think
it makes sense though.
It does make sense, and I will say that I don't think that reciprocity or the expectation of reciprocity in certain situations is unrealistic, right? Like I don't think that reciprocity is that big of a red flag or something that we shouldn't. I mean expectations, but I might not be the best candidate to talk about expectations because as we realize, maybe I do have unrealistic expectations sometimes. So
it's so fucking hard, that whole concept of like everything that you're talking about, because my therapist is like has encouraged me to think about the idea of just not having them, not having expectations at all. Period. Yeah. And I think there comes, depending on, what you're going through in your life, there might be a time where not like really, really attempting not to have an expectation is like a self-preservation strategy. Like, let's not, have expectations and therefore can't get hurt. Right.
Right.
I think that is like a tool in the toolbox.
Right. I agree with that. That's a good...
Right? It's like a way to maybe look at having no expectations.
A way to help. Absolutely.
Right? Like avoid disappointment, which we talked about.
Yes.
It's like, however, I don't think it's like a way of being. This is personal. Like I don't personally believe it's a way of being because... And I don't know if anybody out there has managed to never have any expectations and therefore they live a very, very happy, fulfilling, satisfying, whatever life, then cool. I would love to hear from you and learn.
Yeah. Spirituality, I think Buddhists have this concept. I think if we look at one of the laws that one of these people have written about that don't expect anything or... decreased expectation does lead to like an inner peace. And for the same reasons that you're talking about. But in practice, that's a very difficult thing to do.
So hard.
Because we're human beings. But I guess the utopia of that, not having expectations, not expecting reciprocity, could be freeing.
Yeah, freeing and for sure. But I think in like any kind of if in friendships or in relationships or any kind of dynamic professional, like there like you do expect right to, and I think it also depends on your. Let me think through this. I'm thinking through it.
Yeah, think through it. Because there's also the concept of managing expectations too.
Right.
And what that looks like in the process of like, maybe just thinking about not having your expectations set too high for certain things.
Yeah.
So the idea of maybe this idea of not having any expectations is difficult in practice, but managing them is a little bit more palatable for us to...
I think that's fair because if you want to improve, like you were saying, relationships are growth.
Yeah.
Like relationships, any kind. Mm-hmm. I think the good ones will not be hard all the time, but if you're in a relationship with someone for some period of time, like it will be hard at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like
100%.
conflict, like that's just
what it is.
What it is, it's inevitable. Mm-hmm. I think, right? And so, but yeah, you kind of work through it and therefore maybe manage expectations.
Yes.
Because if you never have an expectation for anything or anyone, like I don't know how people get better at it.
Yeah, that's a good That's a good point. I don't know either. And I also think that not having any expectations or anything like that opens the door for you to just, I don't know, like tolerate or,
Get walked all over,
yeah,
perhaps.
like I don't know. I don't know where the fine line is. I don't know where that line exists because, you could have too many expectations that leads to disappointment and things like we talked about, have no expectations, then anybody could just do anything to you and then there's just like nothingness. But yeah, so I think that it's all just a process,
Yeah. I think it's easier to see it in the frame of work, like professionally, expectations. I think,
Well, yeah.
like for like leading a team, if you don't have any expectations for your fucking team, then
there's no progress.
You're no progress. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's like
that's more clear.
It's a clearer than it is for like personal relationships, but
in personal relationships, I do think, and maybe I'm just now going back on it, I do think that these things are very, not in the way that we understand it in the workplace, but of course in our relationships, I think that it is really important to have some kind of an expectations, boundaries, all these things in your partner, in your relationship, in your friends, But yeah, striking that balance is very, very, very important. I think for me, I conflate relationships, and because like for me, I understand relationships to be like this umbrella.
Okay.
And then relationship dynamics fall under certain things. So I want to get into this idea of like the platonic, the romantic, and the different ways that we show up in these dynamics with different people, especially in friendships. So for me in friendship, which might not be, I'm sure there's other people out there because I know, one example, but for me, there's almost like a spectrum, and in my dynamics with people, they lean very heavy platonic in my friendship, or obviously they're friends, so they're platonic. Well, they have friends with benefits that might fall more so in the middle, where somewhere, but yeah, so it's platonic, but also this act of like romance is also embedded in my platonic relationships with people and my friendships. Romance means to me just like moments that you would think about sharing with your significant other, typically, which might mean all the really beautiful, nice things that you might do for one another. And this is not in every friendship that I have. This is in a lot of them, but not all of them.
Okay.
Because it also depends on the other person's familiarity or comfort level, or, but in where I love to be is in deep connection, deep romance, but not sexual romance.
Okay.
Just like platonic romance and just like platonic connection with people. Platonic.
Okay. Hold. Can you explain for the listeners who might be like trying to understand?
It's like, what does that mean? All of these things make no sense to me.
Like, what is
Fair.
it? What does it mean? Like when you say, like you said, what platonic romance? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So high romance, but also very high, and it's like, so it's non-sexual romance.
Okay.
Right? So, and then non-sexual romance might just be like things where you're going out on dates with your friends.
Okay.
But, and you wouldn't think of like, oh, we're on a date, this is romantic. Yes, it is, but it's not, we're not sexual.
There's no there's no goal at the end of it to, for example, be sexual,
physical.
I think that makes sense. And I think a lot of people right now are like, oh, fuck. Like, yeah, I'm romantic with my friends.
And it's awesome.
In this frame.
It's really great to have those experiences. And you kind of know, for me, if I'm with someone and they say, wow, this would be a really good date spot, that's kind of how I know, like, oh, this teeters on romance.
Okay.
This person is considering this situation to be romantic. Right. But with the friends that I have a natural platonic romantic cadence with, very normal for us. But someone who might be like, oh, this is interesting, are we on a date? They are the ones that are like, oh, I want to take my significant other to this place.
Okay.
To kind of sort of have a do-over. Yeah. The difference really is when you're experiencing like a platonic romantic moment with someone, you both can share that space and time together, and it enhances your friendship.
Yeah.
The person that is thinking about bringing somebody else to the same spot is really longing for that moment to be with someone on a more, sexually intimate, romantic level.
Oh, interesting. This is like a TED Talk. This is like a concept that you need to bring to to the podcast. Obviously, we're here and you're kind of talking about it. And now I know a lot of people are going to listen and think about it. And I guarantee you, maybe some people have thought about it, but haven't been able to put it in those kinds of words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
like a concept that, I feel like it's like I haven't ever heard of it framed in this way.
I suggest that you check out Dr. Marissa G. Franco. She is the author of Platonic, which is a New York Times best-selling book.
Oh.
And she is awesome. I met her in New York, and then we met again in DC, and she talks a lot about this idea of the importance of platonic love and how platonic love in your life is even... Data shows that it's, if not more enriching in your personal life than a sexually romantic relationship could be. So, yeah, I wish these were all new concepts that I was just talking about and creating in my brain space, but I have to give her credit where credit is due because I learned a lot about these things. And it really gave me the reassurance that all of it is normal. Like, if I didn't have the framing or someone that did the work to understand how I felt about my platonic friends, I would kind of feel like, wow, I'm very confused in my desires to have deep connection with my friends, deep romantic connection with my friends. And I would feel very alienated. So I'm glad that people like her exist.
All right. So, and bringing the plane to a landing. I don't know why. I just always think about when I'm ending these conversations, it's like a plane landing. So we'll use that again. But in bringing the plane to a landing, I think today's conversation has... Even though we've talked about a lot of these concepts before, if we've recorded today, they always, serve as a reminder to me personally to think about friendships in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. Also reinforces my desire to continue to create those deeper bonds with friends. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being a friend.
Spaceship computer.
You're the best spaceship computer.
Put my little hat down.
I love that. You're an awesome friend, and I really appreciate our friendship. And I'm excited. So what the audience doesn't know is that right after this, we're gonna do some bonding, and we're going rock climbing.
Yeah, we are. I'm fucking terrified.
Yeah,
but we're gonna do it. Yeah. It's a good terrified.
Yeah, good. Yay! I've never done it either. So let's get out of here. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for coming on and sharing all your concepts and your thoughts, and I think giving a lot of people something to think about.
Yeah, I'm excited for what's to come for your podcast. Good job.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.
All right, everybody. Until next time. See you later.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to Introspectively Speaking. I hope something in today's conversation sparked something within you. Take a moment to reflect on what resonated, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, sending you a big, big hug.